Hey there, this is Gray. I'm the producer for Lived In. Just wanted to let you know that we've had some audio issues with the next two episodes, so please bear with us. Even though the audio isn't perfect, these are still two very wonderful conversations that should be heard. Thank you for listening and being a part of our Lived In family. Now, on to the episode.
When it comes to almost anything, spend time with yourself, identifying what you need. Communicate to the loved ones around you what you need. Consider their yes or their no or their maybe a gift for you to be able to then make an informed decision moving forward and reorient yourself in order to move forward and get what you need.
Welcome to Lived In by Zoe Therapy Services. I'm your host, Micah Faye, and I'm excited to share with you a community of experts who specialize in helping you feel fantastic. That's what Lived In aims to be, an online hub for DIY wellness, led by the experts and curated by folks who care. In this wellness series, I interview Richmond community leaders, vendors, and healers to empower you with a toolkit, one filled with healthy practices to make every day just a little bit better. So welcome to Lived In, your online comfy couch, surrounded by friends and supported by experts. Come on in. We're excited to have you.
And welcome back to Lived In. I'm your host, Micah Faye, and today we are with Cassandra Calin, who is an Lcsw, or a licensed clinical social worker at Zoe Therapy Services, and we are going to be talking about relationships. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. So, okay, please tell me, what is an Lcsw?
LCSW stands for licensed clinical social worker.
Okay.
And social work can be different from counseling in that it sometimes has a focus on social justice or understanding the systemic marginalization or oppression that plays out for a client. And so it allows you to have the bigger picture, smaller impact understanding. And so I went to school, VCU, got a master's in social work, worked for a couple years and got a license.
I think maybe this is just me, but I think when we think of social work, right, we think of folks who go to a home and remove children.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so can you tell us maybe what is actually true as opposed to that conception?
Yeah, the reason that I pursued social work is that there's so many things you can do with it. And so you can be a social worker and work in a school, you can be a social worker and do one-on-one therapy, you can be a social worker and work for the DSS or the CPS or those sorts of places. But anything that involves sort of taking care of and holding other people, I think a social work degree can be appropriate for. And so it's so much more than just that CPS or DSS worker, but it does include that.
Okay. So we've also had an LPC on our show, and I don't know when this will air, so maybe it's before, maybe it's after, but we learned in our time with Brittany that an LPC is more focused on like skill sets and the practical, and her practice especially is very focused on like a toolkit, giving her clients a toolkit. So can you tell us sort of the difference between an LPC's outlook and an LCSW's outlook?
I would imagine that it's vastly different for each LCSW.
Yeah.
I know for me, it is that zooming in and zooming out of what's playing out for you, how is that impacted by systems,
Right.
How can you then shift or impact the systems back or change your orientation to them or just sort of succeed despite them. But that's sort of like, what are the narratives that you have been taught to believe about yourself and internalized and that you're holding about the people around you based on our society, our socialization. So that is sort of how the social workness of it plays out for me, but I don't know for other social workers.
Well, no, because exactly what Brittany says is she takes like an individual approach, whereas LCSWs look at she's a really cool word for it that I'm forgetting now, not environment, but basically they take a look at the whole person in context. And an LPC looks at the person and helps the person with the person's things. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, so an LCSW works with a person within the systems that they exist within. So I would imagine a great deal of intersectionality and like discovery of identity.
Yes.
In that place too. So then can you tell me sort of what your day looks like here at Zoe?
what I enjoy about working at Zoe in private practice is that I have so many different types of clients. I have worked at other places, one of which I still work part-time, where I'm predominantly working with the same type of client, which is generally a child who's experienced trauma and is part of a marginalized population, and it's just sort of definitely not the same story over and over again, but not quite the variety that I get here. And so I have folks from 10 to, or maybe 8 to 54, I think, is my oldest client.
Wow.
So that's a range I haven't worked with before. I think working with adults now is exciting because I am an adult. What? And so I have a different sort of, I think, empathy or relatability of sort of, I've also been through that, or that could happen to me, and sort of being able to, I'm not a 6-year-old, and so it's different to be like, let me help you out, where it's just like, let's consider that, and just something I haven't been through, but as a part of human adulthood experiences and how we can be helpful to each other in supporting that person's navigation through it. So yeah, I have probably 20 clients that I see in a week. I'm here part-time. And some folks need support around engaging with their family and shifting dynamics there. Some folks need support around just their own self-image and learning, their power and their worth. And some folks need support with decision-making or routine in their day-to-day, or that sort of general self-care, sort of how I create a life for myself that feels good. And we talk through it. It's great.
Brittany and I actually talked a lot about self-care, which is great, because this year I asked my students for, yeah? She's over talking about my students.
I mean,
she says, Mom, school ended on Thursday.
I know my students.
But I asked them to send bi-weekly self-care emails. So once or twice every month, they would send me an email saying, here's the thing that I did. Here's why I did it. Here's how I felt afterwards. XOXO Gossip Girl. And when I introduced the idea of self-care to them, they were like, oh, that's some white people nonsense, right? Like some white people stuff, right? And so and they were like, oh yeah, it's face masks and bubble baths and whatever. And so reframing their knowledge of what it means to take care of oneself. We even rephrased the name of it. Self-compassion is what we decided to call it. And so reframing it, they were so brilliant. They were like, this week my mom taught me to cook something new, and now I can cook that thing. And that was the way that I took care of myself this week. And I was like, look at y'all go. And then other times they were like, I did a face mask. And that was good too. So we had a long talk about it, but it was good.
Yeah.
So can you tell me what your favorite mode to use is with people? Like Brittany's is meditation and Julie's is coloring books, and my therapist is the polyvagal theory. Do you have a favorite thing that you like to use with everybody, or no?
I think in line with what we were just talking about, self-care, I love having folks write letters to themselves.
Wow.
It's definitely not every client or every session, but that's something that is a pattern I've noticed. And I think you can work with a variety of ages and experiences. And sometimes it's a letter of condolence to yourself, and sometimes it's a romance letter to yourself, a love letter, and sometimes it's just future self or past self or reflection. But I think there's something different in writing a letter to oneself if you can set your intention than journaling or than writing a letter to someone else. There's a very particular place I think that can land for people. So that's something that I like to do.
So how, for folks watching at home, when do you know you need to write a letter to yourself, and how do you begin?
Usually I start to recommend it when I'm noticing the client reporting a lot of negative self-talk. So if you've gone through something and you're telling yourself you should be over it by now, or if you are having trouble making a decision and you're sort of shaming yourself for that, or even just the little things in the day-to-day of, I stubbed my toe, that door jam is there every day, how did I miss it? Sort of when you're noticing that you're speaking unkindly to yourself, just in your head. And a lot of my clients, I talk through that that way of talking to yourself is often me carrying on a pattern that someone else started. Mm-hmm. And so someone else used to speak to me that way, or maybe still does. And so if they are no longer talking to me that way, I continue to talk to myself that way. And like, that doesn't need to happen. That person's gone. You can be free of that. But one of the ways of beginning to heal around self-talk and how people see themselves, if they notice that that's happening, is to write an intentionally kind, whether it's love-based or just grief-based or sweet letter to yourself. Generally with what you would want someone else to say to you, or what you might say to someone else who's going through the same thing that you're going through, because we tend to be a lot harsher with ourselves than others.
Yeah, definitely true. So, write a letter to yourself. That's what I'm learning. Mm-hmm. But your sort of expertise and interest is in relationships. Yes?
No. It depends on how you define expertise. Okay. I don't have any sort of certification in it. I don't do a lot of couples counseling. It's an area of passion, mm-hmm. Definitely an area of interest. And I think something that has been a part of my life since way before I was interested in becoming a therapist. And people would sort of bring their concerns to me, and I would help them talk through it and just notice the patterns that play out and how people relate to one another in my own life, my relationships, and also those around me.
Okay, so tell me about what healthy your relationships look like, I guess. What? We need to know.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I've been learning about relationships is that it is very, very difficult, and I would go as far as to say unlikely, for one person to be everything to another person. And I think we get sold that fairy tale, and I think we look for that, and we create these checklists or whatever of like, my best friend should like all the same things I like, and know what to say to me when I need something said, and laugh at all my jokes and all these things, right? Like, there's a list of what makes someone in the relationship with me deserve that title. And I find it's a lot more powerful to find that balance between engaging with the person and who they are and how they are already, and asking for what you want and what you need. None of that is expecting them to be everything that you want and need, and none of that is the assumption that they will read your mind and know what it is. But the difference between, hey, I know you're not a big texter, I am big on texting, and how can we like stay connected because you live out of town and it makes me feel happy when I hear from you without you feeling a bunch of pressure to be somebody that you're not, that sort of thing, versus like, well, clearly you don't want to be my friend anymore because you never text me back and that makes me sad. Like, we can just talk about it, right, and sort of figure out how we can make this thing work in a way that is for both of us.
So what does that look like? Also, you might be tired of this question, but what does that look like in COVID times?
Yes. So I think the first step is to figure out what you want and need.
Okay.
And so you can't communicate it. You can't ask anybody for it if you don't know what you need. And so if you're wanting for your house and not sure how to tell the difference between being bored and being lonely, that's a good thing to sort of sit down and discern between.
How? Yes. I think I do. I think I don't know the difference because I am constantly. I live with the most wonderful human woman that was ever designed, and we're both teachers, and we both were virtual this year. And I would just burst into her office and yell, "I'm lonely!" And need her immediate attention. But maybe I wasn't lonely. Maybe was I bored? How do you know?
Sometimes it's trial and error.
Okay.
Try doing something that you enjoy doing and see if that meets the need. I also think there are so many ways, especially now, to be creative about how we connect to people without that having to be, I'm in your space right now. Yeah. Because sometimes we can't be, and sometimes the other person's busy. And so, for example, say I ask someone to write me their favorite recipe. And then I go and I cook that recipe. We're not engaging while I'm cooking, but I still feel connected to them because it's their favorite recipe and they wrote it down for me. And I know that they love making it. And when I'm eating it, I'm thinking about them eating it, right? And so those sorts of things. Or we buy the same puzzle, and I'm working on it by myself, but I send you a picture of like my sort of middle place, and you're like, oh, you're so much further than me. Look, I'm just getting started or whatever. And then I have to take 7 days off, and you're like, look, I caught up, and I'm like, oh, I need to get to it, right? And so there are ways for us to be working on the same puzzle without being in the same room. I had someone ask a friend to write them a letter of all the things they think are amazing about them, so that if that person is having a low moment, feeling lonely, or just not sure what the things that are good about them, they can read that letter rather than like, friend, you need to be available to me right this second because I don't know the things that are good about me. And so lots of, I think, just being creative about like, what is it that I need? Let me try this. Okay, that didn't do it. Let me try this. Okay, that didn't do it. The difference between like, if I'm bored and I'm sitting next to you and you're doing something else, I'm still bored. If I'm lonely and I'm sitting next to you and you're doing something else, it might be enough for me to have just like sitting in the same space. And figure it out from there.
There's a word for that, right? When people enjoy like just sitting in the same space and being quiet, something.
Some people would describe it as just like a form of quality time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a word for it, and I can't remember the name for it either.
I found and actually something that felt very real to me. I love languages for folks who have experienced trauma, and one of them is sitting and doing different things, and it has a name.
Coexisting.
Yeah, coexisting, let's say. And that is like a way that quality time, which is my number one love language, one of the ways I like it best is sitting and doing our own things. Yeah. So I just now learned about it. I think that's really cool. But the things you're telling me, they don't seem COVID specific only. You know what I mean? Because people can't be available to us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we do, even in non-COVID times, we have family that live far away, you know? Mm-hmm. So then, can we talk specifically about family? Is that allowed? Mm-hmm. Is that okay with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know you live far from your family, mm-hmm. and my parents are 20 minutes up the road, but the rest of my family is very far away. Mm-hmm. So, like, how are you, I guess, keeping your family relationships strong in this time and in other times?
Well, that's different. I think another thing I'm learning through my work is that most people have complicated family relationships, right? And so I think the tricky part there is if I'm interested in staying connected to a family member and they're not interested in staying connected to me. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. But like, maybe I talk about feelings too much and it's annoying to them, or maybe something happened in terms of conflict when we were younger and they want a relationship with me, but that reminds them of it and they feel guilty. Or maybe, my mom is still in this very mom role of wanting to guide and instruct and tell me what to do, and I'm in this like, girl, I'm a grown-up, don't tell me what to do. And so there are lots of ways in which we can want relationship with family members, and it's very tricky to have it, let alone figure out how to have it in a way that works for both people, particularly across distance. My brother has, I don't know when or why, but just like really stepped up his game in terms of like wanting to be connected to family. He'll reach out, he'll text, call, and he coordinated a family vacation this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think one of the things is figuring out the role that you want to play in your family distinct from the one you have played, because it's really hard to shift from, when I was a kid, I was the youngest, I was the baby, and everybody treated me X way. Yeah. I don't want to be that anymore. But everyone is in this family culture and in this habit of, so how do you break away from that and do something different? I think is identifying what you want to feel different and then either manifesting it in your own behavior or communicating it to the people around you.
Wow.
But a lot of it is around, for me, prioritizing the parts that you want to engage with a person around. And so I might talk to my mom, weekly about different recipes and how to decorate my house, and we never talk about my relationship. And if that works for me, if that works for her, then okay. It doesn't, again, need to be this movie theater or TV show mother-daughter relationship where we talk about everything and she knows all my secrets and whatever. Like, find the ways that you want to connect.
Right.
Make sure that both people are satisfied with that, and then hang out in that place.
Wow. that, I guess, sounds easy, but when I think about it, seems...
It's hard work.
Yeah. In my family, my big, beautiful Italian family, I'm the quiet one, which you know me outside of this space, and by now our listeners probably also know. In any other room, I am easily the least quiet human, but I'm like the quiet one, the arty one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed it when I visited this like 3 days ago, whenever I was there last, kind of being treated, like talked over. And in my real life, no one talks over me. Like, no man.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is weird. This is like, I'm not this person to anyone. We're just all so loud that this is... Then I thought, you know, do I want to be the loudest in this group of people who refuse to listen to each other sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a value that I have anymore? Because maybe not. You know what I mean? And then my adorable little Nona went off on something about how someone was a drama queen or something like that. And then I was able to be like, well, Nona, I have a friend who acts X way, and it's because she experienced X thing. And you know, Nona, I don't think she's being a drama queen. I think she's trying her best to take care of herself. And sometimes that looks a little like ugly to us, but I don't think she's being a drama queen. And for the first time in my whole life, my Nona was like, I didn't think about that. I was like, being the quiet one has power? Like, what? So it's interesting that you talk about that when I've experienced it personally, not 2 days ago. I will reevaluate my role as the quiet one in my big, sweet family. They're all in the literal circus. Like, it's a wild time. Anyway. So then, how, in thinking about these relationships and like finding our roles, does it change when we're talking about romantic relationship as opposed to family relationship?
I mean, the biggest difference is that you're generally relating to one other person as opposed to 5 to 25 people.
Yeah.
But I do think that we can get very comfortable with the person that we're in a relationship with being a particular way. And so, for example, if someone is X way at the beginning of our relationship, whether it was to impress me, that was the point of their life that they were in, or they were trying that out, or whatever, and then 6 months in, a year in, they're a different way, I might come in with, oh, you stopped trying to impress me, or you don't work as hard anymore, or you've changed. And generally, yes, they have changed. Does that mean to be a bad thing? Some of us want long-term relationships and need to embrace that humans change. And if I'm interested in being with this person for 5, 10, 50 years, I'm going to be with 50 different iterations of that person. And are we changing in ways that are compatible? Are we changing in ways that make us at a certain point incompatible? Great. That's a good question to ask. But it doesn't need to be you've changed for the worse. It doesn't need to be you've outgrown me or you think you're better than me or any of these things. People just are growing. And so how can I continue to shift and get to a comfortable place around this new version of who you are as someone that I still want to be in a relationship with?
How does that impact your own relationship? Like, do you have rhythms that you and your spouse do? Do you have... What secrets do you have?
We have a lot of depersonalization.
Ooh.
Which is relatively new for me. I'm a very sensitive person and have been told by my family a lot growing up that I take things too personally. I think what that actually looks like for me in the day-to-day is that I care, I have a lot of compassion, and I want things to be best for everyone.
Right.
But, for example, if my partner is having a bad day, I learned early on, it probably has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And maybe it's showing up in them saying something in a more coarse tone of voice than I would prefer. And we can have a whole conversation about how I want them to talk to me moving forward. But generally, they had a bad day. Yeah. And what they don't need is for me to, pick at this one thing that's showing up in between us when everything else has happened completely outside of us, right? And so how do I be like, I didn't like that, and go make myself a sandwich and like come back the next day? And if it's not a pattern or if it's not our norm, then like they can just be having a hard time, and I can just not make it about me or need it to be about me, because it's probably not. We also have the degree of trust in our relationship that we need for me to know that if it was about me, if they were upset with me, they would tell me. I don't have to walk around and wonder and sort of like go back over to the things that I've done that day.
Yeah.
If they were mad at me, they would tell me. If they're mad and they're not telling me, it's probably not at me. I'm just gonna let that happen over there and go do my thing, right?
How do you reconcile that when you've experienced trauma, which causes you to walk on eggshells, which makes you assume that you are an empath and really you're just hypervigilant? Like, yeah, you breathe differently, and my brain is like, well, she hates me now.
I guess that's what's happening. No, so yeah, I think it's that in that instance, it's the work between the two people.
Okay.
The one person being able to ask every 5 minutes if they need to, are you mad at me? And the other person being patient to say, no, if I was mad at you, I'd let you know. And after 2 years of that, hopefully, the one person could begin to trust that, and the other person could not have to say it every 5 minutes anymore. But I do think that it's part of being with a person is being with their traumas, right? Their decisions, and just who they are and how they've come to be that person. I was talking to my spouse the other day actually about I wanted to get on the roof and clean the gutters, and they were very worried about the danger there. And they were like, well, if you fell off the gutters, that would impact me, because I was telling them that I felt like they were trying to control my decisions. And they were like, well, if you fell off, that would impact me. And I said, when we decide to, one, live together, but mostly be together, we take on each other's risks of each other's decisions. Every time you get in the car, I trust that you won't speed, and that if you do, that you will pull over and not get into a car chase.
Right.
And that if you pull over, you're not gonna spit in the cop. Like, there's so many things that I'm trusting you to not do, such that at the end of the interaction, you will come home to me. When it comes vice versa, and me dealing with the cop pulling me over, it's a whole different thing that has nothing to do with my behaviors. But when it comes to my partner, who's white, I'm trusting that they will make the decisions that will bring them home to me, that will be in the best interest of our family. And if they don't, then I have taken on that risk. I've chosen to, sign up for that, and we'll deal with it together. And it won't be, but you should have. It's like, okay, this is how this played out. We've talked about it around the dog, for example. They'll let the dog out of the car and have 2 bags of groceries in their hands and not take the time to put the dog on the leash as they're walking from the car to the house. I am signing up for the risk of the dog running away, because I know that that is a decision that they make. That would be devastating, but I would not then pop up and be like, it's your fault. I'd be like, I know that you made the best decision that you could in that moment, to not put the groceries on the ground, to trust that the dog wasn't going to go anywhere. Anyway, I think there is an amount of risk that we take on by choosing to be vulnerable with the people around us. And that in signing up for that risk of disappointment, of the impact of how their decisions will come down on us, of how their trauma or their insecurities will play out in our direction, there's a lot of continued agency that we can exercise, which is, do I choose to continue to take on this risk? It is about me and what I'm signing up for, and if one day I wake up and I realize that impact is too big on me, or I can't take it, then I get to make a different decision. But I'm not asking you to not have that trauma, or not be impacted by it, or not be anything other than who you are. I get to sign up to be in a relationship with that person or not, based on the risks that I'm willing to take on.
Wow. And then I guess, have you heard people talk about how they finally fall in love and they're so excited about it, and they have the constant fear that their spouse or whomever is just going to get in a car accident and be gone? Have you heard this? It's like a theme on the internet right now. No, okay. Yeah. It's I've seen it on the gram and the TikTok.
Oh, the gram.
Yes, the gram and the TikTok. I know about both. Okay.
I've heard of the gram.
I found the Google. I'm aware of it. But it's a thing that's happening right now. Actually, there's even a sound for it on the TikTok. And I wonder if maybe thinking about framing sort of the risk relationship in the way that you just described it is actually what a lot of people need to hear right now. Because I do, even in my, late 20s friend group, that's a thing I've heard expressed. It's well, now I have this person, what if they just disappear? thinking about it in that way.
I think a lot of people do avoid intimacy or vulnerability because there is that risk. There's constantly the risk that somebody that you open up to or learn to trust or fall in love with could be gone either of their own. They could leave you, they could cheat on you, they could die. Sure, right. Any of those things are possible. A lot of people push people away or self-sabotage in order to not have to experience that. And for those people, I would say you get to choose whether it is more important to you to protect yourself or to feel intimacy and connection to another human.
Yeah.
And whatever that priority is for you right now, like, lean into that, but don't do both. Try to be in a relationship and intimacy and vulnerability and then push that person away because the risk and the fear is too great and then trying
right.
because that's not great.
Right, yeah. And then I guess the only kind of relationship we haven't talked about thoroughly yet is friendship. So I happen to know you're an excellent friend. And I'm curious, in COVID, out of COVID, what's your top friendship advice, being that you are an excellent friend and also a licensed social worker?
Yeah, I love that friends can be as important and as valuable as romantic relationships. I don't think we are taught that. I think we're taught that when you get a romantic relationship, your friendships fall to the side, or at least are deprioritized. And that, again, that relationship is all you need. And so I would encourage people to lean as deeply into their friendships as they do their romantic relationships. Again, I think that can take so much pressure off of your romantic relationship if you're able to say, you want to go dancing with me? No, I don't. Okay, I'll go with my friend.
Right.
It doesn't, wait, you don't want to go dancing with me? I love dancing with me. Are we breaking up? No, I just want to go dancing. And there are 5 other people who would like to go dancing with you, so go with one of them. Or the same for talking about something. If I'm having a really hard time, particularly with my partner, I could talk to my partner about it, and it will probably be very difficult for both of us. Or I could go talk to somebody else, a friend, right? And within that friendship, building the trust of, I do not hate this person. Every time I tell you that I'm having a hard time with them, I will tell you the positive things in addition to the hard things that we go through. And I can be clear whether I'm looking for advice or just someone to listen, or whether or not you've experienced this, right? In the same level of communication, the same level of trust and reciprocity can be happening within a friendship, such that you're getting your cup filled and your needs met in a degree that just creates the lush and sumptuous relationship environment that you need.
And always have someone to go dancing with.
Unless none of your friends like dancing. In which case, dance with yourself.
I'm the friend that doesn't like dancing. That's me. Have you seen Sex and the City?
A little bit.
So one of the last episodes when Mr. Big is confessing his love. Of course, the show is about a relationship between 4 women. It's the men orbit them. They come and go. Yeah. And Mr. Big says, "I'd be lucky to come in 4th." And my best friend and I hold that so dear to us. I would be lucky to come in 4th, because he is recognizing, right, that his relationship is not the most important thing. And I just think every time I hear that, I try to prioritize that kind of thinking. Get it tattooed on you.
Yeah, I think. I definitely tell my spouse that they're my favorite person. And I think there is always this caveat of and my best friend and my sister. It's 3. And you are tippy top, and also these other 2 people are also tippy top.
You are tippy top, but also
them too. They're great.
Yeah. So I wonder, we are running up on the end of our time, but what is the one thing, the nugget, that I can go home and share with my neighbor, metaphorical or literal? I'd like to make that clear.
Do you have neighbors?
I do have neighbors. I don't live in the boondocks anymore. No, but I realized early on in shooting this that I was using a form of Christianese that I didn't know I was still using by saying the word neighbor, because I conceptualize neighbor as any human I come in contact with, whereas other people who did not grow up in the evangelical church.
Next door.
Yes. But I realized I was Christianizing, and then people didn't know what I meant. So now I say, yes. So now I say your neighbor, metaphorical or literal.
Right.
What's the one thing I can take to them today and that can change both of our lives in some small way?
Okay. When it comes to almost anything, Spend time with yourself, identifying what you need. Communicate to the loved ones around you what you need. Consider their yes or their no or their maybe a gift for you to be able to then make an informed decision moving forward and reorient yourself in order to move forward and get what you need.
Okay, so consider what you need.
Yes.
Just express that
Mm-hmm.
to the folks around you.
Mm-hmm.
Consider their answer, whatever it may be, as an attempt to continue a relationship with you healthfully.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the last one?
Reorient yourself to get what you want, right? So, oh, I'm bored. What do I want to do? I want to go dancing. Hey, partner, you want to go dancing with me? No. Thank you so much for telling me no, because if you had said yes, and then we got to the club, and then you were being a drag,
It wouldn't have been great.
it would have been great. I'm like, why'd you say you wanted to come? Well, you wanted me to go. The fact that you said no really helps me figure out how to have a good time at this place, and not just you said yes because you felt like you had to say yes, and then you didn't really want to be there. You need to get too drunk, or you're just like sitting on the ground. I don't know. This is helpful. Your no is helpful, and then I can say, okay, cool. I'll stay home with you. Okay, cool. I'll ask somebody else. Okay, cool. I'm gonna blast the music. I'll go into the basement and have my own dance party or whatever. I get to reorient and not stay here stuck with trying to change your mind or ask you why do you want to go or whatever. I'm going to then shift, pivot, reorient to get what I need and also stay in a relationship if it feels good.
I wonder, does everyone always know what they need, and do you have a practice for knowing, for discovering in that moment? Like, how do you know you need to dance?
That's why the first step is to spend time with yourself and figure it out.
Okay.
Again, I think it is a lot of trial and error, reflection, and self-awareness. I wonder if it would be helpful to make a list of the things that fill one's cup and to go through that list. And so if meditation, food, and quality time with another human are the things that are on my list. Maybe I start with quality time and I realize that none of my friends are available. I could then wallow. I could go to a really dark place and feel alone, or I could switch to the next thing, which is food. Maybe I have a difficult relationship with food and I don't want to or feel like I shouldn't be eating right now. Instead of eating, can I research a recipe? Can I just wander the grocery store? Can I watch a cooking video? There are so many ways to relate to food. Reading reviews of restaurants without having to be going to this difficult place of like consuming food.
Sure.
Maybe I try one of those and it works for a little while, maybe it doesn't. So then I go to the next thing, right? And just recognizing, okay, when I feel like this and I get to my second option, that one usually works, the first one usually doesn't. Like really checking in, how did I feel before, during, and after engaging in this activity?
Ooh.
And adding things to my list as I go. So I was feeling down, I told my friend about it, she invited me to go roller skating, and I had the most amazing time. And roller skating is not on my list, but now it is.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that is something that fills my cup, right? Or going to the gym or whatever.
Right.
So creating your list, trialing and erroring it when you realize that you need something, noticing your feelings before, during, and after, and continuing to build your list as you go.
That's brilliant.
Thanks.
And very practical. Yeah. Some of our guests, and these are important words too, but so often our guest advice has been, you're not alone, because we've been filming all through COVID. And so it was such an encouraging message. You're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone. But I appreciate too, like, here are four steps to have a healthy relationship, you know? We all need that, and you have a knowledge set that I don't have. And so thank you for sharing it and giving me the gift of the 4-piece nugget. You know? So how, if we're in Richmond, Virginia, and we're watching this right now, how do I come see you?
So I'm here at Zoe, and my email is CCALIN@ZoeTherapyServices.com. And I'm also on the website if folks wanted to find me there, Cassandra, Kaylin. I have very few availabilities right now on my schedule, but I have a few, just a couple.
Okay.
I'm happy to hold folks on a waiting list, and I right now predominantly work with folks who are LGBTQ or people of color.
And age range is 10 to
100.
Oh my. Okay.
I don't really have an age range. Like I said, The tip of my age range right now, clients that I see is in their 50s, and my mom recently left her 50s, but sort of is my frame of reference for that. And I was like, what do I have to offer someone who's twice my age? Oh, yeah, I have plenty, and I'm enjoying this, and the conversation is sweet, so.
Good. I don't know what my dog is doing currently, but I apologize that it's happening.
She's doing great.
Just itchy face.
Yeah.
So tell me what's next for Cassandra, Kaylin, LCSW.
We have referred to my spouse throughout this time.
We have, yes.
We got married and bought a house in October of last year, but had to do just like the two of us and an officiant type deal. And so in February of next year, we're going to get to have the whole ceremony and the reception and the party, and I'm really looking forward to that. And just continuing to build with that person and my community and figure my life out.
Well, congratulations. Well, thank you so much, my love. You can visit zoetherapyservices.com or you can call 804-303-9622 if you would like to book with Cassandra.